As a future counselor and currently in my practicum, I think it is very important for counselors to prepare to work with various ethnicities such as people of color. Um, if I knew that was going to have a client that was considered to be a person of color come in for a session, or if I was going to see them the next day, I would try to get a few things in order first. First, I would make sure that I knew um, any stereotypes or microaggressions that I had would be thrown out the window. Um, as we all know, all of us have stereotypes, and as the text says, it's pretty much impossible to grow up without them. So I think it's important for us to recognize our own stereotypes and microaggressions before we see a person of color as a client, so that we make sure that those stereotypes or microaggressions aren't conveyed during the session. If these are conveyed during the session, then it might be possible that they see that, and then that may be part of the reason that there's a high turnover rate for people of color um, to seek therapy. So first, I would try to see if there's any microaggressions that I had, and I'm sure there are, and I would be well aware of those. That way, if he says something or does something and I make a facial expression, he won't be like, oh, well, that was a nonverbal hint that she really didn't like what I said. So I would try to make my demeanor very non-biased and act like I'm really interested in what that person is saying. Which brings me to my second thought on I would try to connect with the client immediately. Um, I know self-disclosure isn't always appropriate, but I feel like if there's a certain way that you can connect, even if it's right off the bat, then I think this is important. Such as, I would first tell the client to tell me a little bit about himself or herself and why he's here. And um, by just telling about his or herself, then maybe we can find something to connect on, such as, oh, well, I like this TV show. And I could say, oh, I like that too. And maybe they would find some kind of connection with me and then be very comfortable with me for the beginning. Um, Another thing I would do to make sure that they come back is I would make sure that I'm well aware of what am I trying to say? I'm well aware of the client that is coming to see me. So, for example, if I know that a person of color is coming in, I need to be aware of that and be aware of the stereotypes that exist and pretty much try to throw those out the window so that I will not have any preconceived notions about this person. Because if a person comes in and I already have a preconceived notion about this person, well, that would probably turn up in the session through a microaggression or what have you, and then that would bring it back to the counselor or to the client, or the client would see that and then they would be like, oh, well, I don't want to come back. So I think the main thing people, or what a big thing I would do before a client comes is be aware of my own microaggressions, try to throw those out the window. Be aware of my own stereotypes, try to throw those out the window, and try to find some connection with the client right off the bat. This way, hopefully, they'll be more comfortable and continue to see me. I would also make it very notable throughout the entire session that I really am here for the client. So I want to make sure everything they say, everything they're going through is very interesting to me and that I want to help. If I show my complete interest in this person, then regardless of color, that may that may want them make them want to come back. And as far as what counselors as a whole can do, um, I think it's really important that at whatever agency or school, hopefully that I get a job at, I want to advocate how important it is to be multicultural and maybe even do a or a classroom guidance lesson on like microaggressions or something like that. Because many people don't really know that they exist, and like the text said, we subconsciously take part in these things. So I really want to educate people on this. So I hope that through education and keeping myself in check, that hopefully my client, regardless of race, will feel comfortable coming back and